Why do 90% of people feel they can't overcome life's biggest challenges? Let's change that narrative together. I'm your host, Dr. Stephen B. Grant, Doctor of Psychology, but you can call me Dr. G. Here on the Warriors Hearts Rising podcast, we're all about resilience, grit, and the power of the human spirit. Every week we dive into incredible stories of triumph from people like you, those who faced their darkest of days and found the light. Whether it's a soldier returning home, someone fighting and breaking free from racial or workplace discrimination, or a family finding unity amid their personal chaos, we will try to cover it all. Life continuously throws us curveballs, but with the right mindset and a strong warrior's heart, nothing is insurmountable. We'll talk about real struggles and real victories, sharing tips and strategies to help you rise above your own challenges. So if you're ready to turn your scars into stars and your wounds into wisdom, please tune in and join our community of conquering warriors. Because no matter where you come from or what adversities you're facing, you have the strength to rise. So welcome to Warriors Hearts Rising. Sit back, get ready, and let's rise together.
Good evening, and welcome to the very first podcast of Welcome Heart Rising. I'm your host, Dr. Stephen B. Grant, or as some calls me, Dr. G. Today, I would like to explore the battle that forges us and the inner strength that makes us warriors. My initial intent was to have an honest conversation about the journey of anxiety, grief, and the path to healing. However, after speaking with my daughter earlier this morning about her plans to make life better for aging pets and the recent loss of her beloved Pink, I was reminded why I chose to pursue a degree in psychology. I chose the field of psychology for several reasons. But the main and most pertinent reason was because of my aging relatives and noticing how vulnerable they became as they got older and their independence became more and more dependent on others. And the frustration it caused in their lives not to be able to do the things that they once were so capable and readily able to do. That not only crippled their independence, but it made them vulnerable to depression and grief, of more of a feeling of loss of self. So I choose to be vulnerable at this juncture because I know I'm not alone. None of us are. We are not alone in this situation. My story began, I'd say, around the second week of August in 2016. This was when I learned that my mother had been admitted into the hospital in Atlanta, Georgia. Now I worked and lived over 4 hours away in Boone, North Carolina. And once I learned of my mother's hospitalization, I informed my upper management of my family situation and made arrangements to leave. So I had to secure a leave of absence. I had to secure someone else to replace me in my office as a postmaster at the post office at the time. Although other family members were closer and in Georgia, but it's a situation of mothers and sons. Everyone knows how mothers and sons relationships are. My mother needed me, and because of her prognosis and her doctor's outlook on her situation, I had to be there. So, so when I initially heard of my mother's diagnosis, I got a phone call from my brother while I was at work. And what do you do? I I started pacing back and forth in my office, trying to keep things together so my employees would not see me all flustered. And you know when it's your mother, you you become unraveled. And I didn't want them to see me all torn apart when I left my office to go back out and engage with them. So after going through the processes of getting the leave of absence and all the approvals, securing the replacement for my office, I went home to Atlanta. And regardless of how many family members I have, I became the caregiver for my mother. It was not until actually speaking with her doctors personally that I learned how grave her situation truly was. And after weeks turned into a couple of months and the multiple intimate conversations with my mother and taking her back and forth to the doctor's office for appointments, to the hospital, just to get her out of the house, to try to lift her spirits and take a drive, to go nowhere a lot of times. It was not until one Wednesday morning, going to her appointment once we left the house, and she had something profound to say. I won't share that at this time, but it made me realize that a lot of the things that we had talked about had come to fruition, and it was an insight on things to come. But at this particular appointment this Wednesday, after seeing her doctor at this time, he suggested that I take my mother to the hospital, that he would call ahead and let them know that we were on our way and to expect us. My mother never left that hospital once she was transferred to his hospice wing. As most families do, we found our way to somehow rally and enjoy Thanksgiving holidays as this time had progressed from the August of me getting to Atlanta and now November, my mother in less than 3 months is now in hospice. And it's Thanksgiving time frame. So the family actually took Thanksgiving to the hospital to celebrate with our mother, to the matriarch of our family. 2 days after Thanksgiving, November 24th, 2016, my mother passed. November 26th, 2016. Although it is said that time heals all wounds, some wounds seemingly take a lifetime to heal, especially when the loss of someone leaves a void in your life that never, ever seems to fill. Nonetheless, regardless of our darkest points and how hopeless we may feel after the grave loss of a loved one, we can find strength to keep going. And that's what we're here to talk about. How do we keep going after the loss of our loved one? If anyone tells you it's easy, they're lying to you. When you suffer a profound loss, you can get through it one day at a time to the point where things may seem not as tense, or you might even think of your loved one and imagine the words that they would say to you to get you motivated, make you laugh, or make you realize what they would want you to be doing since they're no longer here. It can be the smallest of things that get you moving. It was for me. I remember my mother telling me to live your life. And that is not always easy when the person or persons you're living for is not around to see what you've done. And that leads us to the grief. Now it's time to talk about not letting grief and the loss of our loved ones overwhelm us. It takes time and patience to heal from the repression of our grief and anger over our losses. But with the right strategies, it is a journey well worth starting. One, seek professional help from a therapist or counselor. It is a crucial part of learning healthy coping mechanisms. Two, expressive therapies, something like art, music, writing. They're all influential outlets for expressing intense emotions. I found finding a place of solitude and just screaming to the top of my lungs and just releasing all of that negative energy helps. Scream into a pillow, just scream out loud. Nobody's around, even if they are, who cares? This is about you healing. Mindfulness and meditation can be a third option. And what this can do is help present and acknowledge your feelings without becoming overwhelmed. A fourth option, try connecting with others through either support groups that provides a sense of community and validation, people who are going through similar things that you are. Even though you all may have incurred losses, but no one grieves the same. It affects each of us differently. Now, physical exercise, some form of yoga. My other daughter has talked a lot about yoga, and it seems to help her a lot. It reduces stress and pent up emotions as well. And then lastly, allow yourself to grieve, but practice self care and engage in activities that brings you joy and relaxation, which is essential. If you find things that you love to do, it will definitely help the grief process run smoother. It's still not easy, but it will help you get through it a lot easier. And then we come to the healing, hope, and rising process. Now understand that loss and grief are universal human experiences. We all, at some point in our lives, face the pain of losing someone we care about. And what we're going to have to do is navigate through this tumultuous storm, this journey of grieving their absence. Nevertheless, even as we share it universally, how we handle, accept, and process our losses vary significantly from person to person. The loss of my mother is going to affect me completely different from the loss of your mother, your father, your sister, your brother, your relative, your friend. We may all grieve, but how it affects each and every one of us is completely different. The process of grieving the loss of a loved one is deeply individual. Our relationship with that person who has passed, the circumstances of their death, our personal history and coping mechanisms, and the support systems we have in place, they all influence how we experience and work through this grief. And also understand there is no right or wrong way to grieve. There's no singular timeline or set of emotions that everyone will or should experience. Some may find themselves overwhelmed by intense sadness, while some others may feel numb or struggle with anger. There may be moments where you are completely calm, even finding a way to celebrate the life of the person who has passed amidst all of your pain, because there's no right way or wrong way to grieve. It's individualized to each and every one of us. And it's also essential to remember this, that grieving is not a linear process. It is not something we can get over by a specific time. There, there are some people that say, well, that happened years ago. You should be over it by now. Or why are you still grieving? There is no timeline for grief. It's a journey. There's ups and downs. You steps forward, and sometimes what feels like we're stepping back. But it's a process of learning to live with loss and finding a way to integrate that loss into our lives and our understanding of ourselves and the world. trust, and believe that there is no one size fit all remedy for grief. What helps one person cope and heal may not be the same for another. Some may find solace in talking with friends and family. Others seek the professional counseling, or some just go to a support group of others, like I said before, who've been through the same or similar things. Engaging in meaningful rituals, creating expressions, self-care, or finding ways to honor the person who has passed can all be parts of your healing process. It's yours. It's nobody else's. But the key is to be patient with ourselves, allow the process to unfold as it will, and seek the support and tools that feel right for each of us. My tools are for me. What feels right for me may not feel right for you. So find what's work and feel right for you. It's a journey that takes time, but with compassion for ourselves and an openness to finding our way, we can learn to navigate the pain of this loss and find a way to move forward. I mean, right now, this is stepping way far out of my comfort zone. And just speaking about the loss of my mother brings tears actually to my eyes, but I've tried to maintain that composure because that is right now works for me. But it's not always good to bottle it up. Sometimes you just have to let it out. But I'm trying not to do that on my first podcast to you guys. But I don't want to overwhelm you or go too far off kilter. I'm going to conclude by saying thank you. Thank you all for taking the time from your lives to listen and join me on this journey of emergence, allowing that warrior within to rise so that you may live and overcome whatever adversity has been holding you from progressing into your most profound and audacious you. Do not forget that engaging and harnessing open dialogue power you. It powers your collective healing. Tap into the various available resources for grief and loss. So you're not feeling as if you're going through this alone, because you're not. Even if you need to get in touch with me either through whatever apps that you have, if it's Instagram, if it's Facebook, send me a message. I'll be there to talk. I'll respond because you're not alone. We're not alone. On this is that it's okay, and it will be okay. You must take care of yourself before trying to continue to take care of everyone else. There's nothing wrong with self-compassion, seeking professional help, and getting involved within the community to help you get through your pain. Find whatever you feel suits your healing, not anyone else's. Because you have to take care of you first and foremost. So thank you for allowing me this moment of your time. I am here. We are all here together to break the silence and remind each other again that we are not alone. Do not give up. You're warriors. Keep rising and never stop seeking the light.